What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to another Fantasy Football Scout video with me, Lee, and this is Sam from FPL Family. Now, no points prediction video this week. That's coming this time next week because we are in the midst of an international break, guys. We've got 2 weeks off of FPL, and I don't know about you, I kind of feel like it's the right time for a bit of a breather, time to reflect on the season we've had.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to just kind of go, right, we've got
Take
9
stock.
weeks to go. In the words of Højbjerg from Spurs, 9 finals coming up. Can you get your overall rank where you want it to be by the end of the season?
9 FPL finals coming up, guys. But for this week, even though we've got the points prediction coming next week, for this week, we thought we'd chip in with a bit of a cheeky Q&A. We've got Game Week 30 coming up in about 10 days' time. So we've got some questions from the Twitter community. So thank you to everybody that answered the tweet and sent in questions for this video. Now, obviously, all of these questions have got that little caveat around them that says, well, if we speak about a player and he gets injured on international duty, then all right.
Don't shoot the messenger.
Don't shoot the messenger. We're recording this fairly early on in the international break. So if you're watching this kind of on the eve of Game Week 30, we do a question about Bale and you go, well, he pulled a hamstring for Wales.
Don't say that.
Well, okay. You know what I mean. You take my point. I'm a voodoo doctor. So Q&A for Game Week 30, guys. Let's crack on with the questions. First question from the Twitter community was from... I love Andy to bits. He does these graphics, but he's made the font very, very small. So let me just...
read it.
And I'm in my mid-30s now. I've got to get my glasses on. I've got to have a look. For Loco Leipzig. So thank you for the question, for Loco Leipzig. Sam, a good question that I think is a great one for you, actually, because you brought in Jesse Lingard this week. Is it too late now, though, to bring in Jesse Lingard, or are his returns sustainable? So he's averaging something like 8 points a game right now, which is absolutely ridiculous and surely can't continue, can it? Or can it?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because as I said to you when we were watching that game in Game Week 29, Jesse Lingard was meant to be a 1 week. In you come, fill my team with points,
Right.
off your pot.
Yeah.
However,
You had no plans to keep him long term, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't have any extended plans. I mean, he probably would have got a stay of execution in Game Week 30 just because I'm building to a wild card in 31. But he's now looking like a player that I want to continue to hold. Now, the reality of the situation is that he's had 8 goal involvements since joining West Ham, but his XGI is only at 3.27, so it's not huge. Plus,
he is massively overperforming that XGI, isn't he? That expected goal involvements. What we expect him to achieve, he is achieving way more than that.
He is, absolutely. And within that, he's had a tap-in and also a penalty. So, it's not exactly
Nothing wrong with a tap-in and a penalty, by the way.
Oh, from an FPL point of view, I'm more than happy.
Didn't he miss the penalty? He
did.
scored the follow-up, right?
But, the point still is that he is overachieving based on his XGI.
Sure.
However, having said that, when you watch him, he's, for me, passing the eye test week in, week out. He's dangerous. He's in the right positions. He's all over the game at a time where there are a lot of tired legs in the Premier League, and that's not necessarily going to get any better after this international break for those that have travelled. Jesse Lingard looks fresh. He looks up for it. He looks like he is putting himself on the shop floor if he wants to move away
in the shop
from
window,
United.
you mean? Oh, maybe. Maybe.
Or even if he wants to stay and go back and fight for his place, he's making a statement anyway over the last few weeks.
You've only got to look at how West Ham played in that Manchester United game in which he couldn't play. I don't want to use the word dreadful, right? But they certainly lack something going forward. And then they come back at home against Arsenal and they're 3-0 up in 30 minutes. So therein is the impact of Jesse Lingard right there.
Yeah, so I think for me, it's not too late. The XGI isn't great. However, the eye test and everything about where Jesse Lingard is at the moment is really good. So for me, it's not too late to own him and I'm going to be keeping him.
Tell me about the fixtures though. So West Ham coming up, Wolves away, Leicester at home. Before then, a nice looking away game at Newcastle. So if you haven't got him, is there a rush to bring him in for Wolves and Leicester? Can you wait until that Newcastle game? Because it's Newcastle, then it's Chelsea, which is tricky. Then it's Burnley. So that Newcastle game really stands out for me. And actually West Ham's fixtures between now and the end of the season,
bit of a roller coaster.
They're a bit up and down, but generally I think they're trending towards good, I think, the West Ham fixtures. So I don't doubt that if you've got him, given the form and the fixtures between now and the end of the season, I think he's a hold. But as a non-owner, I'm not rushing ahead of Wolves and Leicester. That Newcastle game, though, looks good.
I mean, let's see. We really don't know yet what's happening with Patricio after his injury, so
it
might be a wait and see because Wolves without Patricio are going to struggle in the same way that Wolves struggled without Jimenez up top and going forward. So let's see how that pans out over the next couple of weeks and what news we get from the Wolves camp. But for me, the form that Jesse Lingard's in, I wouldn't put it past him to score against anybody right now.
All right, double up with Antonio, yes or no?
I don't know. I'm not sure about the double up. Antonio was great, don't get me wrong. He played really well in game week 29, but I still think he's recovering. He's still coming back to match full fitness. He is a little bit lacking towards the end of the game sometimes.
He certainly is. So Jesse Lingard, without a doubt, a hold if you have him.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he's a wait a couple of weeks and then attack it in the Newcastle games.
Get on the fire when it's on.
But, well, yeah, I mean, if you've got your wild card in 31, both of us are playing our wild cards in 31, I assume he's going to keep a slot in your wild card in 31. Not going to transfer him out, are you? Or are you?
No, I mean, the plan was to. The plan was actually, because the fixtures are a little bit mixed for West Ham,
Sure.
The plan was to sell both him and Souček and just keep Creswell, who's been phenomenal at the back. But now I'm looking at it thinking I'll probably keep Jesse Lingard as well.
Yeah, I mean,
nice
right now, I think he's got a slot on my game week 31 wild card. But anything could happen. It could all change. So there's Jesse Lingard. Now, a second question from Holmes. Thank you, Holmes, for the question over on Twitter. Sam, is owning 0 Manchester City players a good differential or even a good decision? 0 Man City players. They look as if they are going to waltz their way to the title. What's the gap now? 14 points or something ridiculous?
It's a tough one, this, for me.
What's going to happen?
Because I think they are going to run over the title. But how much of a priority is Pep going to place on the league? And therefore, how much rotation are we going to see? Because he's got a League Cup final to play in game week 33. He's got an FA Cup semi-final to prepare for. He's got the Champions League that they're still in to contend with, and of course the league. But to me, at the moment, the league is probably the lowest priority there because he's already got an established lead. They've got some decent fixtures to continue that run.
Sure.
And with the backups that he has, they look like they can win those games. So it's a tough one for me. Now, I've gone down to just Diaz currently.
Right, okay. So Gundogan's gone out of your team.
Yeah.
Was he the make way for Lingard?
Yes, he was part of the Lingard
Right,
move that happened for game week 29. So it's a tough one because I'm looking at Man City across the board thinking I definitely don't think the double up at the back is on anymore. I think we're starting to see a lot of rotation around Stones and Cancelo in particular. And I think you get on one and you go with it. The forward players, though, are starting to find some rhythm, and we're starting to see, particularly from Kevin De Bruyne, I think he's going to be an incredibly popular owner.
Well, he's the one, I think, with the question mark around it, right? And a lot of players, I think most of the people watching will have Gundogan or will have had Gundogan at some stage, given his value. For those thinking of wildcarding over the next couple of weeks, is the Gundogan to Kevin De Bruyne upgrade? Well, first of all, is that worth an upgrade? You're paying almost twice as much for Kevin De Bruyne. You think that's worth it?
That's part of the reason I sold Gundogan this time around.
Because your longer term thinking is, I want De Bruyne in that midfield.
Yeah, that's my long term plan. I think I'm going to go without a City attacker in game week 30.
Okay.
And then in my wild card for 31, probably pop KDB back in the middle and stick with him then until for the rest of the season. Now, of course, over the course of the rest of the season, there's other things to consider because that game week 33, if you don't have a free hit, looks challenging to manage.
Tough to navigate, yes.
Spurs, Man City and Fulham, not so much Southampton, but Spurs, Man City and Fulham, all relatively popular owns. You know, lots of people trebled up on Man City, lots of people trebled up on Spurs as a result of game week 29.
Sure.
Lots of people with Fulham as a result of game week 29. So tough to manage that. So there will have to be some hard decisions to be made, but I think for me, Kevin De Bruyne looks like the one at Man City. I think you'll regret not having him, but I think you could probably get away without owning the rest.
I think you're right. I think certainly that view of, game week 30, maybe you can go without, or maybe just go in with one, I think is fine. Leicester City away, not an easy game, what Leicester are like on their day. But after that, Leeds at home, Aston Villa away, then it's the blank, then it's Crystal Palace. So I think even though the blank is in there, I still think my game week 31 wildcard is going to have probably 2 Man City. And it's probably going to be De Bruyne and Diaz, I think, because I think they are the most secured in terms of their starts. Is there any other Man City assets that would catch your eye outside of those two, or anybody in defence? What about, is Mahrez worth a punt if you're behind in your mini leagues? Is he going to see more time in the league? Because, is Mahrez in Pep's first 11 in the Champions League quarter, semis and final? I don't know. So does he get a bit more time in the league? There's maybe a thought around that.
Probably,
maybe,
possibly,
but we're guessing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Pep and his roulette, who knows? And that's where it's hard, isn't it? Because I agree with you. I think Mahrez has looked really good of late, but can you take that risk? I think you take the risk with somebody like Kevin De Bruyne because his importance is as such, and his return, you can be fairly confident that Kevin's going to return most weeks. Now, if he misses out, he misses out, and I think you kind of take that. But I think if you own Mahrez, the chances are you're probably going to feel like you also want to own KDB, and then it brings you into that game week 33 problem as well. So for me, it's probably just going to be Kevin, and I'll probably build the rest of my squad in that wild card around the other teams fighting for European football and relegation and that sort of stuff to cover myself with players that are going to play.
Yeah, so I think the answer to the question is 0 Man City feels a little bit...
It's a good differential,
like you're
though,
exposed. Yeah, so the question is it a good differential? You'd say it's a good differential. It's just a risky differential.
It's risky, and I think not owning Kevin might hurt you in the long term. Or not owning one of those attackers, I think, will hurt. But you can probably go without the defence now.
Yeah, I mean, one thought I had the other day, and just to follow on from the Mahrez point, was that you could probably put Foden in that bracket, or Ferran Torres. There was a whole bunch of players, even maybe Jesus and Aguero, that you can put in that bracket of, I don't trust Pep to start them, but they are fantastic differentials.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that I might be tempted that way is because obviously the way that my budget is right now in FPL, the way that FPL, frankly, has turned out this season, yes, I'll be investing in a couple of differentials, but goodness me, there is some cracking value elsewhere in the game with the likes of Souček and Lingard and Bamford and Rafinha and Jota. So loads of value that you can start to invest in. So could you go for one of these Man City players knowing that you've got some strength in depth on the bench, that if they don't play and they're rested for the Champions League, you're going to get an auto sub in that's probably half decent because you've got a half decent bench. If I was really chasing in my mini leagues, I would, I think, consider a slightly different outside of the box Manchester City asset. But it is not without its risk, guys. Does come with a fairly hefty health warning picking Man City players outside of Kevin De Bruyne. As we know, that is not news to any of you. I'm absolutely convinced. Third question, Sam, is what to do with Gareth Bale? Hold or sell? Thank you, the units on Twitter for the question. You bought Gareth Bale in this week, obviously with no blank.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Well, yes, but listen, I think you're in a great position because if I look at the way that game panned out and I look at the opposition in particular, I think Jose Mourinho was, I think, right to make that not a game where, you know, as we've seen against Burnley and Palace and in the Europa League, Jose Mourinho, when he plays Son, Kane and Bale together, you know what you're going to get, and that is all out, full frontal attack, right? You're just going to get attack after attack. And attack is the best form of defence in those sorts of games, no doubt about it. But you come up against an Aston Villa away, and suddenly that might not be the right... Actually, the way that Aston Villa played, you could have been, to be honest with you. You could have had more goals because Aston Villa were terrible in that game. But I think Jose's more conservative approach was correct and actually won the game 2-0, so you can't complain. Newcastle, altogether different proposition. So if you've held Bale and you're disappointed by the 0-pointer and the no-show from last week, I think the worst thing you can do now is sell ahead of Newcastle. Surely he plays. Surely Mourinho lets the horses run free and he goes again, doesn't he?
It's a tough one for me, this, because Gareth Bale, I don't know if you saw, he came out in the media today and said, the reason I came to Spurs was because I wanted game time ahead of the Euros.
Ooh.
And I'm planning to go back to Madrid for my final year of my contract.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, interesting.
Now, you know that is going to annoy Mourinho a lot.
Certain Portuguese.
Because
yes.
even if that's true, and look, I mean, you're not going to just say that. He's going to say that for a reason. And actually, as a Spurs fan, I don't so much mind that I've come because I want game time to build up to the Euros. Because, you know, that's all right for me. I object to the I'm going back to Madrid at the end. Just, we all assume that.
Yeah, you don't need to say it. It's a behind closed doors thing.
We know that's happening, but
he's had plenty of game time recently as well. For Jose to drop him against Villa, given actually his performances in the previous couple of games to that, you can sort of see why he was dropped. So I don't know why he's got to throw his toys out of the pram like that.
A little bit of a strop, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. It was an international.
He needs to go and chill out, play some more golf, just relax.
It was an international press conference, so you never know. But look, I think he will play against Newcastle, barring something happening during international break.
I think so too.
I think that is the sort of game that, as you say, Jose will look at that and go, attack. Yeah. Let's be attacking. Plus, Son should be back for that game because he's not gone on international duty, which is great from a Spurs point of view. He's got some recovery time, some rest time.
Which I think he needed. I mean, the injury, I think,
totally.
amplifies that, yeah.
Totally. So I think, I expect the three of them to play. So as a Bale owner, I'm going to hold him. I don't know if I'd bring him in, though, now.
Okay, interesting.
I don't think I would look at him and think... Yeah, I look at Kane and I look at Son and think I would want to bring you guys in because, you know... I also sort of look at Lucas Moura now and think,
Played very well against Aston Villa, didn't he? Very well.
And earned the love of the manager the last few games.
He earned the right to start the next couple of games.
Really playing hard. Yeah. And that Newcastle game will suit him as well, right? So I think if you have Bale...
I think the Newcastle game would suit me and you, to be honest. I think even we could score against that Newcastle team right now. Not looking good.
I think, you know... If you own Bale, you hold. You can't sell ahead of Newcastle. But
so that's the question: hold or sell?
You can't. And
you're
sell
saying
ahead of
it's absolutely a hold ahead of Newcastle.
But for me, if he doesn't perform against Newcastle, he goes in 31 with my wild card.
Yeah, because of course it's Manchester United at home after that, Everton away. Then it's the blank. So the next three for Gareth Bale is not necessarily fixtures that you'd want him. Now listen, they come back after the blank into Sheffield United at home, no less. But even then, I think if you've got Kane, he's your obvious go-to captain choice. Or Son, I think, would be an equally good pick amongst us as well. So I think the answer to the question for the units is hold, not a sell, depending on what happens. You know, assess against Newcastle, and then maybe think again ahead of Manchester United. Exactly. Well, there we go. So thank you for the question. Fourth and final question from MX Cross. Thank you, MX Cross, for the question. Is it worth, Sam, tripling on Chelsea defence? Tripling on Chelsea defence, or is it too risky?
How times have changed.
Well, listen, I mean, the answer, my gut reaction to that question is tripling on any defence is too risky in any given game week. But...
Well, you did want to do it as part of a free hit if you were going to do it in game week 29.
Free hit against a Brighton team against Newcastle. That was the most nailed on clean sheet ever. But going forward, you know, this is not in a free hit scenario. This is, you know... Should I bring in? And I'm assuming...
That must be Mendy, Rudiger and Azpilicueta, probably.
Well, whichever way you look at it, is it worth tripling on the Chelsea defence? In my mind, it's like, no, too risky. I never triple on any defence in FPL. And I think I would answer that question in that way. But if you were to say, pick any team to treble on defensively right now going forward, you probably would say Chelsea. Their XGC is better than anyone else in the league in the last 6 or 7 game weeks. They look phenomenal. The job that Tuchel is doing in there is nothing short of a miracle, isn't it, defensively?
It is, but I also think that Chelsea is starting to improve going forward as well. And there's a couple of players, you know, that I think between the end of the season might just kick on and have a good close to the campaign. We've seen the likes of Ziyech and Werner, and obviously Mount has been fairly consistent.
Got to have the strong bench if you're going to pick those guys, though, because any given game, you know what's going to happen.
As you rightly said earlier, there's a lot of value across the squads at the moment because you're not necessarily talking about owning the biggest hitters and the most expensive players. You know, we're not suddenly trying to find space for the likes of Kane, Aguero, Salah, KDB, Aubameyang, all of those players. We've sort of whittled it down now, so we're really talking about Kane and KDB as proper premiums.
Salah and Aubameyang say hi. Fixtures say hello.
Well, they can keep saying hi. Not seen a lot from them.
Go on, Chelsea,
so I think my point is that you probably can afford to go with one of the Chelsea forwards and have some backup on the bench in case you need it, of course. But I think you want a space in that Chelsea slot because I'm fairly sure that one of those attackers is going to kick on towards the end of the season. So I wouldn't be opposed to a double up at the back, but I think the treble up is a little bit much.
And I think if you look at these fixtures, game week 30, I'm pretty sure ahead of my wild card, obviously I'm going to use my transfer in 30. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on a Chelsea player. At home to West Brom looks absolutely nailed on. Then it's Crystal Palace, then it's Brighton, West Ham away, which is a tricky looking fixture on paper, and then Fulham at home. So listen, the fixtures for Chelsea, at least on paper, look very, very good indeed. If you go to the Fantasy Football Scout website, if you're a member of Fantasy Football Scout, and if you're not, by the way, there's some links in the description below where you can become a member. But if you're already a member, go log into the homepage and you can use the fixture difficulty rating ticker on the right-hand side, and you can sort the fixtures depending on difficulty, either for attack and defence. So it'll sort those fixtures by team and tell you who we think in Fantasy Football Scout has got the best fixtures offensively and defensively. And let me tell you, Chelsea are right up there. Absolutely right up there. West Brom, Palace, Brighton and Fulham, 4 of the next 5 fixtures. So if you did want to treble on Chelsea, I wouldn't put anybody off of that whatsoever. Treble defence is the question mark I would have. I would have no trouble with bringing in the goalkeeper whatsoever, and I'm pretty sure Mendy is going to be in there on my Game Week 31 wildcard. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to double up with Rudiger and or Azpilicueta, probably Rudiger to save me a few quid, to be honest with you. And then I would be tempted to have a punt, on one of the forwards, on the basis that if they don't play, you can cover them from the bench. So triple Chelsea, I think, is okay. I don't think that's too risky. But trebling on a Chelsea defence, you are one goal away from, or a Rudiger own goal away from, as we saw a few weeks back.
Yeah.
A catastrophe in your game week.
And it'd hurt a lot. You can spread that well for
if it comes off, listen, bragging rights, no doubt about it. But what you are one goal, you are one little error or one dodgy VAR decision away from losing 12 points at your team, and that would hurt, wouldn't it, in any given week? It really would hurt. So there we go, guys. Those are your questions ahead of Game Week 30. If you've got any other questions, if you've got questions that we didn't answer tonight, get over on Twitter or head to the comments below. Post your questions, and we'll do our best to answer them ahead of Game Week 30. We'll be back this time next week when we will be picking up with the points prediction video. You are currently 9-5 up.
I think it's 10-5.
10-5 up. I was trying to claw back a point there. 10-5 currently to Sam in the points prediction video. We'll be finding out how we got on last game week, and we'll be giving you some picks, some top over 10% picks and some under 10% differentials for Game Week 30 this time next week. Until next time, leave us a like before you go. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to Fantasy Football Scout, and we'll see you very, very soon. Cheers.
Bye, guys.